This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Science of Magic, a program combining the science and magic of today's leading topics to engage evolutionary thought and co-create new solutions. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring intuition you can count on. Some common definitions of intuition are quick and ready insight, immediate apprehension or cognition, or knowing or understanding something without reasoning or proof. Which still leaves the following questions. What is intuition? Where does it come from? And is it a reliable source of information? If true intuition does exist, there are some complications inherent in the intuitive process. For instance, when we suffer trauma, as all of us have at one time or another, the natural response is to become hypervigilant of similar circumstances, registering it as dangerous in order to avoid re-injury. This tendency has helped us survive as a species. It also makes it very difficult to discern whether what we are registering is true precognition or simply triggered anxiety from past damage. As well, there's much talk of our belief systems creating our personal reality. If this is true, when a similar situation triggers us into past damage, yet we view it as clear and present danger, do we not recreate the outcome by believing in it? Is intuition instinctual or something else altogether? Is it standard issue or only doled out to a select few? With us this hour to explore this fascinating topic is Lisa Kay, author of Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to intuition you can trust. Lisa is a teacher, author, and speaker specializing in intuition. She teaches others how to use their intuition so it's more accurate, dependable, and trustworthy. Considered an intuition expert, Lisa has taught hundreds of people intuition development in workshops and seminars. She holds degrees in electrical engineering from Columbia University, psychobiology from the State University of New York, and a PhD from the University of Metaphysical Sciences. Her website is all caps LMK, then the numerals 88.com. That's LMK88.com. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Thanks for having me, Gwilda. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
I think we should have a lot of fun. This is a great topic. I love it.
Yeah. Me too.
You think, huh? So with a degree in electrical engineering and one in psychobiology, what led you to become an intuition expert?
Well, I am the kind of person who's infinitely curious. I just love to figure out how things work. And I figured out if I knew how the world worked, then I could live a better life. And I've always loved science, and so I studied science first and got a degree in psychobiology. I was also interested in the mind and how the mind works, and then went on and was interested in technology, and so I went and studied electrical engineering. But engineering and science and all the studies that go with that really do help explain a lot of things about the way the world works. But one of the things that Western science didn't cover was things that were more transcendental, things that were more intangible, metaphysical. And I was interested in that as well. So I went and studied metaphysical sciences and with a concentration in intuition, because I think, and I still do, I think that intuition is the magic of life. And they say that everybody has that ability to be intuitive, as you spoke a little bit earlier in your intro. But I really wanted to know, well, if that's true, then how do I become intuitive? Again, going on and saying, I want to learn it all. So I went and I studied that.
We're going to have to pick up on this on the other side of a commercial break. It is that magic moment. So time for that break.
Great.
But first, let me tell you about an exciting upcoming provision for those interested in spiritual evolution and personal empowerment, shamanic style. Path Home Shamanic Art School, Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients Key to Tomorrow, and Children of Tomorrow, Galactic Gatekeepers are a revolutionary, affordable series of online classes designed to guide and support you and your family during these times of transition. They'll be coming soon to findyourpathhome.com, so stay tuned to be the first to experience these amazing classes. Again, that's findyourpathhome.com. Lisa and I will return shortly, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic, aired daily on xzbn.net. Prior episodes can always be accessed free of charge on our website, thescienceofmagic.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Lisa Kay. She's the author of Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to intuition you can trust. Her website, lmk88.com. Lisa, let's all get on the same page here. What exactly is intuition?
Okay, so the definition of intuition in a nutshell is knowing without knowing how you know it.
Oh, I like that. How can you tell what you're knowing without knowing that you know it is true?
Well, it usually gets validated by circumstance, situation, or following, what comes after that knowing. Or it could also be something that we recognize that had happened in the past. So, and most people do. Most people are, oh, I knew that was going to happen, or I had that feeling that that was going to happen, or I knew that person was going to call me. So it has to be validated.
So how can we tell that we aren't creating it by believing in it?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that people always ask me is, how do I know the difference between when I'm making it up and when it's real intuition? And intuition is something, it's like a skill, like anything else, and you have to learn how to develop it. Some people are more natural at it and they sort of come into it more easily because it just is a natural skill for them. But we all have it and you can develop it. So the best way to know the difference is two things. The first is to understand the characteristics of intuition and how it comes to you. And the other is to have a technique that you can use to make your intuition happen, be under your control so that you can practice that and learn. And as you practice, you're going to get results that you can validate and say, that was it, that it worked. And then you can remember how it came to you and through that experience, and therefore you know that what the true intuition feels like.
So, what about people that, well, most of us have carried, we've had trauma. Let's face it, we get bumps and bruises in life. How much does our past trauma and our reaction to that interfere with our ability to really tell what's coming in intuitively and what's coming in from triggering?
Well, I certainly think that trauma does have an effect on making it probably a little more difficult for you to understand what your intuition is, because the past trauma is fraught with lots of emotion, and emotion kind of clouds what we're receiving. So what we are, whether it's, we're being driven by a fear or doubt, and that is not intuitive. So I think what you can do, again, going back to working with your intuition, there's in addition to the two things I mentioned, which is understanding exactly the characteristics of intuition, and we could talk a little bit about that, and also practicing working with it all the time. The third thing is to use what I call tools, and there are tools that you can use to get you out of your worry state, your doubt, and your thinking mind, and using the technique, and that way you can tap into your intuition a little bit more easily. So,
So, you brought up an
mhm.
interesting point. What does emotion have to do with intuition? If we're emotional about a situation, does that throw a red flag?
Well, intuition is generally not super emotional. If you're extremely emotional about a situation, then it's probably coming from you, not from your intuition. Intuition can have an emotional feel to it, but it's usually very subtle.
So also then let's talk about the mind. Our
Hmm.
reasoning and intuition isn't necessarily the same thing either. How do you
No,
differentiate?
exactly. Well, we could talk a little bit now about the characteristics. So, of intuition. Intuition is not thinking. It's not reasoning it out. It's not deduction. Intuition is, as you had said a little earlier, it can be an epiphany. It's usually quick, penetrating insight. It's a pop-up, and that's a great term in that it just will pop up inside of you. And again, it's inside. People sometimes think it's outside, but it's not. It could be one word. It can be an image or a part of an image in your mind. Um, it can be a subtle feeling. Like, and the feeling might be more not always emotional, but it might be an attraction, a little draw, or you feel like, oh, I feel like I'd rather go in this direction than that direction. So those are some of the characteristics. The other thing, and these characteristics, interestingly enough, of intuition are reflective of what's going on in your what I call your intuitive mind. And that's the part of your brain that is intuitive and that has intuition characteristics, which happens to be the right side of your brain. And the right side of the brain processes information that is not logic and deduction, but actually is more holistic, more gestalt. It thinks in symbols, it thinks in pictures, and that's where our intuitive information is.
So how does that relate to imagination?
Well, imagination is the experience of imagination is similar. But again, imagination is something that you can manipulate and you can play around with in your mind, whereas intuition it appears in the same place in the same way. But I found the intuitive messages are not easily manipulated. They kind of stick and they're repetitive.
So they kind of come in through the same channels, but they have a different flavor?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They have a their characteristics again is that they do have a different flavor. They often repeat themselves, and it's short and it's to the point.
So if a person is, trying to start to figure out the difference between just sitting there daydreaming and
Mm.
actually having an intuition, that's kind of like splitting hairs almost, isn't it? How do you get that figured out?
Yes, exactly. And the way you do it is you have a technique that you practice, and the key is that you have to practice. And just like any skill, if you want to know what it feels like to have intuition, it's the same thing as knowing what it's like to swim or knowing what it's like to play tennis, serve a ball. The only way you're going to know is to actually do it and practice it, right? So if you are learning, you want to know what it feels like to swim, you have to actually get in the water. But then you can't just sink in the water. You actually have to learn a technique to swim. And as you're practicing and learning that how to swim, that skill, you'll start to know and feel like what it is to be swimming. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It's a practice makes perfect kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you
And
start to pick up the
mhm.
subtle differences.
The differences, exactly. And I talk a lot about in the book about not only do I describe the techniques and the characteristics of intuition and also tools, but I also talk about how to practice your intuition and what the proper exercises are and what a really good intuition exercise is versus a bad one. And and when you practice your intuition and you're going to be getting hits and you're going to be getting things right, there's a way to I ask people to remember those by writing them down because when it
Hmm.
comes to you, it's like, oh, that's how it came to me. I can give you an example. I was practicing my own intuition, and you can do this anywhere, anytime, because you're always out and about, you're making decisions, you're trying to get information. And I was at a doctor's appointment, and I happened to be a doctor that I had seen a few months earlier, and I knew that he was having a back problem. So I was wondering how he was doing. And I thought, oh, I know, I can practice by using my intuition to see if I can get information intuitively about his current back situation. So immediately, a image flashed in my head where he was hunched over on crutches, wearing a white and green striped shirt. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's awful. Don't think like that. And I pushed the image out of my mind. And then I went and used a technique and got more information that was later validated to be correct. And then 10 minutes later, he walks into the room. He was hunched over on crutches, wearing a striped white and green shirt. And I was surprised.
Oh goodness,
And I
this
was
stuff
like,
really
oh,
works.
I was like, gosh. But the funny thing was, I realized that the moment that I had thought and asked the question in my mind, oh, I can find out how he's doing intuitively, that image flashed in my mind. It was very quick, and I had pushed it out of my mind because I thought, my mother's always telling me, don't think like that. That's terrible. How could you think
Hmm.
like that? And I realized, oh, that was it. That's how my intuitive images come. They're fast and they
Mm.
flash, and I might judge them. So I can't judge it. I have to, hold on to it and remember. So now I know. Oh, and then after that, I started to realize, I began to watch for those flashes of images that pop in my head, and often, they're an intuitive message. So that's how you start to know.
You know what? That brings up another question for me on the last little few minutes here we have in this segment,
Sure.
and that is, what about permission? When we're using our
Hmm.
intuition, if we direct our intent, and I'd like to talk about that on the other side of the break,
Hmm.
to look into somebody else's field, where does permission come in? Where does the integrity of that come in on this?
Good question. Okay, so this is what I've been taught to do, and this is what I believe in, and I think it's really important. That's a common question, and people are concerned, well, gee, is it ethical? Am I violating something and somebody's, you know, will, so to speak? And what I do is I always set an intention, and I ask for, whatever you want to call it, whether it's God or if it's the other person's higher self or just universal consciousness, which is really everything is part of that. And I say, whenever I use my intuition, I only want information that I'm supposed to have, that I'm permitted to have.
So
And so I know
who decides the supposed to?
all that is the higher consciousness. And that's what because I believe that, and my intention is that's where I'm getting the information from. So I ask first. Say, this is what I want. I want only what I'm supposed to have.
Okay. And so, but you leave that discernment to the higher source, if you will.
Yes, right. Otherwise, if I'm not supposed to know it, they won't send it to me.
Nice checks and balances.
Yeah.
So what about intention? It looks like this is totally intention driven. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I think everything we do is intention driven. I mean, that has an influence, right? We're influencing the energy we're sending out, the things that we're doing, and then the universe is responding, right? Energy is responding. And so, whatever it is, I mean, if you are intending to have goodwill, and I think that will be reflected to you, and also in terms of what you're doing and how things will react to your intentions. And I also believe that that has a really strong effect energetically on what happens in your life and things around you. Now, that doesn't mean that bad things won't happen, but then certainly if you're in the right frame of mind and you've got the good intention and and you're a good person, I think then things will happen for the best. And that's a nice way to live, I think. It takes away some worries.
Yeah, yeah. If you say, okay, let's just intend
Mm.
that whatever I put out's a good thing, kind of covers the bases, doesn't it?
Hmm. And you
Yeah,
have to believe in it. You got to have it in your heart, right?
right.
You can't just say it. You have to believe it and feel it and then do it.
Well, it's time for another short pause. But Lisa and I will return to our discussion on the other side of this break, so don't you dare go away. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For leading-edge information on the paranormal, parapsychology, and other exciting topics, don't miss the collection of fine shows and hosts on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, your resource for creative solutions in a changing world, thescienceofmagic.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Lisa Kay, author of Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to intuition you can trust. Her website, lmk88.com. Lisa, you and I both love science and magic, so tell me, have there any scientific studies been done on intuition?
Oh, there have been thousands. And in fact, that's kind of the thing that I started looking at first, just to see, what science is out there on intuition. And there have been thousands of studies that have been done on all kinds of aspects of intuition. You might want to call that kind of people would believe that were intuition and maybe even psychic. So there are things like predicting the future, for example, was something that they've done studies on. And what they do is there have been a lot of smaller studies, and then they do what they call a study of studies. And then they take all the results of those different studies that are maybe using, 100 samples, and then they combine them and look at the results of all of them. And these studies were done around the world, and they were done with the same parameters, using the same controls, and changing the same that one same variable. And in terms of predicting the future, one of the things that they would do is they would predict, say, the color of, they'd have four lights, and someone would have to predict which light was going to go on. They had different colors, and then they had a random event generator that would generate which color, which light would go on. They could also do that with cards. There would be three, or pictures. There'd be four pictures, and someone would have to predict which one was going to show up. So obviously it's 1 out of 4. Now, they did a study of all these experiments. They looked at the results from 309 studies done in the same manner of over about 52 years. And all of those studies included 2 million trials and over 50,000 participants. And they expected that positive results by chance would be around 5%. But the analysis showed that 37% of the studies had positive results. Now, the probability of this occurring, the probability that these results did not occur by chance, was more than 1,000,000,000 to 1.
Wow. And yet we pretend it doesn't exist.
Exactly. And
Isn't that
there are
bizarre?
many studies like this. And that was, with telepathy. They've done it with telepathy. They've done it with remote viewing. The government did studies with remote viewing because they actually realized that, hey, this is a thing. And it's really, so there's, and, I could go on and on. So it's those kinds of things that make you go, okay, it's real. It's real. And William James, who's one of the more famous psychologists. When you study psychology, you study James and you study Freud and Jung. And William James said it's interesting. He believed very much in intuition. And he said, if we had one instance, if we had all these black, we know we have a whole slew of crows and all the crows are black. If we had one white crow, we would say, hey, there could be white crows. There was one white crow. But in the instance of intuition, it seems like we don't want to believe it. If there's one instance of this amazing ability that happens, we have to test it thousands of times. And we still go, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? And where do you think where are we picking up this information from? We have to be getting
Good
it
question.
somewhere.
Good
How is it
question.
getting into us?
And that's why I studied all the things I did. I also studied the human energy system. I did a lot of studies first I started with Qigong, which is from Chinese, the traditional Chinese medicine. Qigong means energy work, and it's the mother of all energy healing modalities. And I studied a bunch of other healing modalities. And it was interesting that a lot of it sort of comes together with the same understanding and theory of that we have a human energetic system on which our physical body is built, and that human energy system is connected to energy outside of us and around us, and energy's flowing through us, and we take it in and we send it out. But along with physics, as I'm sure a lot of people have heard, that everything is made of energy. Mm-hmm. And from physics, that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. So that means it is one thing. And so the energy that makes our physical bodies is the same energy that creates our thoughts. And when you put all that together, it's like, okay, so there's this flow of energy that can contain information. And that's one way of looking at how we can get, say, some information outside of us from other people, from other places, other, whatever you want to call it, other things, and absorb that in our own energy system, and then be able to interpret that, with our minds. And that's one aspect of it. And that information could be thoughts, it could be, divine consciousness, it could be all kinds of things. And so I think that that's certainly the way we're getting some of this information that we don't know how we know it. And that's so magical.
It is magical, isn't it? And it's like, in my lifetime, it's just been validated again and again and again and again. And the one thing that I found, and we're going to slide right back into intention, is if I'm working on a particular project or intending to achieve something, my intuition will tend to hone in on the information I need to know around that thing. Would you mind speaking to that?
Exactly. And that's what I love about the mind. The mind, you create your own reality through your thoughts. That's a little bit about what The Secret was about, and what, the law of attraction. You send out what your intention is, what it is you want, and then the universe responds with like energy. And then you can, just as you were saying, when you're working on a project, then all of a sudden things synchronistically start to appear that are just the right thing for you to do what you need to do on your project, give you more
Yes.
information, right?
Yeah, and that brings us back to the question, okay, are we creating it and that's why we know it's going to happen, or do we take the right steps
Uh,
because we know what's coming?
I think it's a little of both. We're
Yeah.
co-creators, but that doesn't mean we are the creator. And it's the universe is a very complex thing, and we can get very heady here. And when you study physics, it gets really heady. I know that I experienced that even just studying in my texts. Um, but if I think that knowing that we're co-creators, and that the intention that we have as we're moving through life can also attract and bring to us things that we need at the right time, and then also bring us information that we may need. That's what we're tapping into. That's what we are using our intention for, in terms of sending things out. Now, when you were saying, do we create it? I think maybe there is a portion of uh, we know, maybe we don't know. Again, we don't know all of these things. And let's see where we avoided an accident. Did we create the accident? No, I would not necessarily, or maybe we did, and maybe we also created the the situation of avoiding it as well. But that gets really, that gets into the God question.
Yeah, you can really go down a rabbit hole with that one, can't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the difference between being intuitive and being empathic?
I think it's a little the same. I think intuition is sort of a broad umbrella of ways that we receive intuitive messages. Empathic is usually used in terms of feeling and being able to feel other people, and sensing that their feelings. And when you have empathy, you're feeling, again, maybe what someone else is going through, and or what they're thinking in terms of feelings. And
Mhm.
I think intuition is just, that's one aspect of the way we can get some information intuitively.
So do you think we gather clues from all of our senses and then translate them in the mind?
Yes, and I think we get them from our metaphysical senses, which
Hmm.
parallel our physical senses. And some people say, oh, I would love to be clairvoyant, or I'm clairaudient. And I believe that we could be everything. God didn't make you just a hearing person or just a seeing person. You have all your senses and you bring them together to sense the world. And I know that I've been able to develop, I would say, all those metaphysical senses. At first, I thought, well, I'm just, I'm claircognizant. I just get my messages with, an understanding. And I realized that as I was developing my intuition, I could get images, I could hear things, I could feel things that were intuitive messages.
This is such a powerful modality. Why do you think it's been shunned? What's going
Oh,
on
we could
there?
go. Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. I think, quite frankly, I think it goes back to history. I think that when people were highly intuitive, first of all, it scared people because they thought, oh, that must be, magic. Or if it's magic, it might be the devil. I think another thing might be, way back thousands of years ago, the church had a lot of control over how people live their lives, and going through, I believe, the Catholicism or Christianity way back when, they wanted to be the ones to have connection to God because their people were the holy ones. And if you had your connection to getting divine information and connecting to God, uh, that they couldn't. That's not good. They couldn't handle that. So that had to be a no, no. You can't do that.
Yeah, and so then now it's stuck. And there's
I think
this
so. It's
yeah,
a cultural thing.
yeah, it's sad. It's sad because
Yeah, it
how much easier
is.
life would be for all of us if we could
Right, and
listen
it's
to this amazing thing.
sure it's part of us, and we are animals, and animals have instinct. There are things that they know. How do they know that? How did they know, to, go to high ground when the tsunami comes? They just know.
Yeah, and they do it every time too. That's what's amazing.
Absolutely.
And yet we ignore
So, right,
it.
right.
What I got about a minute left in this segment.
Okay. Hmm.
What can a person expect to gain from developing their intuition?
Oh gosh. You can be calm and centered. You know that you're always making the best decision for you. That's, being given to you through, outside of you, divine guidance. And who wouldn't want that? And you can use it in every aspect of your life. Romance, career, health could save your life. It saved mine. I mean, who would want that? That's the ultimate magic.
Yeah, it truly is. And yet it's a real learning curve, isn't it, to be able to tell what's true intuitive information?
And it is. You do have to learn it. It's actually not too hard. I found out how to make it simple, and then you just have to go practice. So that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted other people to be able to do this. It helped me. It saved my life. I wanted to help other people's. Not, if they needed to save their life, great, but just have a better life. That's what I'm all about. And I figured out a technique. I had to make it concrete because I was not intuitive when I was young, and I started from scratch. And I like things, stepwise, concrete recipe, and I figured it out through lots of study.
Lots of trial and error and study. Well, I'm really
Yeah.
excited to get into that technique on the other side of this commercial break. Lisa and I will be back shortly, so don't leave us now. This is The Science of Magic, your resource to altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric working to create common ground for the betterment of our world. Join our email family to receive amazing topic-driven episode collections at thescienceofmagic.net. On the other side of this break, we'll get into how do you access your intuition? How can we trust it? How do we find it? And how do we develop it? Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. What's up in your world? I always love to hear from my listeners. Email me at info@thescienceofmagic.net and suggest a topic or a guest that's on your mind. You're probably not the only one that would be interested. Our guest this hour is Lisa Kay, author of Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to intuition you can trust. Her website, lmk88.com. So, Lisa, how do we develop our intuition so we have the inside scoop?
Great question. Well, let me just start out again. Just rolling back just a little bit, I wanted to explain to everybody how this came about, because, again, I started from scratch. I was not one of those who was intuitive or, when I was young or saw spirits or anything when I was a kid. I wanted to have intuition, but I wasn't intuitive, and I didn't know what it was. And so when I had an opportunity to study it after all my science and background, I went and I did that. And the only way after the science, when we talked about that earlier, was just a lot of studies on whether it exists or not. But nothing really went into how do you make it happen? And the only place where that was on the metaphysical side. And, learn how to be intuitive, learn how to be psychic. And so I decided, well, I'm going to be open. So I went out and I did it, and I studied, books and classes, and even in my metaphysical studies, everything I could get my hands on. And one of the things that you have to do is go out and practice and go out and do it. So I actually went out and I started to do intuitive readings for people, and I became a sold-out intuitive reader, much to my surprise, because I didn't really want to do that, but it started to work for me, and it actually, one day it saved my life. And that was when I realized, okay, that, I can't keep this to myself. Let me teach other people. So I started to teach little groups, and they grew to 100 people. And then after that, I started teaching classes and talking about it. And then people started asking me, well, is there a book I can read? And I said, no. This is I developed this because what I did was I took the things that worked for me, the things that made me successful. And again, I have to make it very stepwise and concrete. And I also studied people who were highly intuitive and watched how they were doing their readings, be very scientific about it. And I started to see they were doing things that they weren't telling you in their class. And that's because they were born intuitive. They were very psychic. And so they just did it. And I started to see, oh, there's something else going on there. And that's what's in the technique. And that's what I learned how to do. So let me tell you what the technique is. The technique is basically, it's 5 steps, A, B, C, D, P. And the first step will help you trigger your intuition, make it happen when you want, which is A is ask. So you have to ask a question. And you're asking your intuition, not yourself, as if you're asking something that's beyond you. And you can ask it a question. It could be, what's my best friend having for lunch today?
So you're isolating out where you're seeking the information from, rather than the soup of input that we get.
Yes. Well, you're going to ask a question. Now, what happens when you ask a question in your mind? Your thinking mind responds and your intuition responds. And so the key is to know what the intuition characteristics, which I explained a little bit earlier. And yeah, right. So that's A. And then B is to be open. And you have to be relaxed and open. And I have a key secret about that. That's in the book on what it's like to be open. And it's not connecting to spirit, and it's not going into your heart, because I never understood that. It's a little bit like when you're there being open and watching TV and receiving. And the key there is actually the state you're in when you ask the question, where's the bathroom? I'll give you the hint on that. But you got to go read the book to get the rest, because I don't think I can talk to you about that here. So that's A, B, and then C is to collect the pop-up, the piece of intuitive message that comes to you. It's going to come in a word or a piece of an image or a sound or a feeling. And then D is to do this cycle again, to do ask, be open, and collect again, because you're going to get pieces of intuitive information. And one piece isn't enough. You have to collect them. And as you collect them, it starts to make sense to you.
Oh, so it's like getting evidence, because we can draw the wrong conclusion.
Exactly. Right. And then the last one is P, which is to practice. And you have to practice a lot and practice the right way. And as you're doing this, you're going to, and I gave you an example of a good intuition exercise. I'm going to see if I can use my intuition to find out what my best friend had for lunch today, because I wasn't with her, and see what pops up. And I'll give you an example. I was doing a reading for a woman who hadn't told me anything about herself, and she just wanted a general message. So at the time, I used angel cards, and I flipped open a card, and my intuition had me look at the pictures, not the words. And in the picture was a lot of green, a lot of leaves and plant life. And to me, I knew from my experience that green means healing. And so that was one piece. And so I went back and I asked my intuition, okay, why are you showing me green? What else do I need to know? And then my eye was drawn to a tiny little piece of a drawing of a bench, a stone bench in the picture. And it was so small, I could barely see it. And I asked my intuition, okay, now you give me green, you gave me this bench. Why are you showing me the bench? And I got that it was a desk. I said, okay, a desk. What does the desk have to do with anything? And then I felt that it was a symbol for knowledge, for the mind. So I've got healing and I've got now mind, right? So I told her, I said, okay, you're going to be a healer, but you're not going to heal the body. You're going to be healing the mind. And she told me that she was, I'm studying right now to be a clinical psychologist. So that's how it works.
What fascinates me here is it looks to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're using synchronicity and cards and coincidence and then interpreting symbology.
Yes, I would say most of it is symbol. Sometimes it's an understanding and knowing. It's what it's like. It's like this: is you're collecting little pieces of intuition messages that are coming to you, and again, you'll recognize them through their characteristics, and you're kind of laying them out on the table. And then as you do that, you see the pieces start to form or have meaning. It's almost like when you're walking through a fog. Or if you see a ship coming through the fog, you don't see it all at once, right? You only see a little piece here. Maybe as you're walking down the road, you'll see a light post, and then you see a tree, and then you'll see a house, and then you realize, okay, I know I'm walking down, through somebody's, past someone's house. And so that's what happens. All the little pieces start to come together. And that's what is happening when someone actually does an intuitive reading for you. They're getting the pieces, they're using the symbols, as you said, they're getting the meaning, and then they're telling you what the overall meaning is.
So how important is it for the person to also be able to interpret the messages that are coming to them through you?
Oh, you mean if someone were to come, you mean for themselves or for?
Right. So no, what I'm saying is you're doing a reading. What's it like if you just give them the symbols and let them discern what it means?
Oh, well, that may be difficult because, again, like I told you, the symbols are my symbols, right? So, and that's the meaning. Excuse me. So for me, the color green means healing. Because I've done, I was doing other readings and I was also getting other messages many, many times before. And healing was always, when green appeared, it was always meaning healing.
So do you set
But for someone else, it might not mean the same thing.
Right. So do you set your intent to get your symbols rather than their symbols because you're working in their field?
Well, the way the mind works is the mind is going to talk to you. Your brain is going to be representing things and things that you understand, right?
Got it.
So so that's what's happening is you're looking at what your intuitive mind is giving you, and it works within you. It's not it can only represent things to you that have meaning to you because it's your mind.
Can you explain why some intuitive information comes to pass and others do not, even though it has the same hallmark and everything?
Okay, so that's one of the things those are things like, wow, my intuition doesn't always seem to work. Well, it may be working for you. It just might be a few things. It might be number one, you misinterpreted it. It might be something that's happening in the future. It might be that, or it might be something that's not, you weren't right, that you missed it.
Pretty fascinating. So you found, I'm sure, that as the more you worked with it, the more accurate you could become. Do you think, and we're just a few seconds left here, do you think that the world is going to change as a result of us accessing our intuition?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you imagine if everybody in the world was highly intuitive and connected to divine source? we'd always be, on the right path for everybody's highest good because we're all one.
That could be a beautiful thing, couldn't it? Well, Lisa,
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for being part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And
Oh, thank you.
thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was great. Thanks,
It was
Gwilda.
great. Time flies and we're out of it. But Lisa was on the show. It was wonderful to have her talking about intuition and how we can access our own. Her name is Lisa Kay, and she's the author of Intuition on Demand, a step-by-step guide to your intuition you can trust. You can find her information on her website, lmk88.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Join our email family to be the first to receive our thought-provoking, topic-driven episode collections at thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you engage your intuition.
One people, one nation.